Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the True Life Podcast. Hope everybody's having a beautiful day. Hope the sun is shining. Hope the birds are singing. I hope the wind is at your back. Quick note for everybody out there. Check out District 216. It's like this premier, incredible psychedelic club. They're taking members right now, and they have what I think is the future of psychedelics and education and entertainment. That being said, let me jump in here. I got two incredible guests for you today. And let me bring in my friend Simon over here. He's a molecule whispering neuro-dimensional codebreaker who doesn't study the mind. He dives into the screaming abyss and pulls back symphonies composed entirely of your forgotten wholeness. He's what happens when the periodic table takes mushrooms and remembers it's God. Simon, thank you so much for being here today. We should have Zach jump in here in a little while, but how are you, man?
Yeah, pretty good, especially with that intro. So thank you again. It's always fun to hear what comes out. I'm doing pretty good, man. Yeah. I think we'll see if we can. We'll get into that. But it's been now a week or a bit more than a week since I went on a bufo journey, and that was the first time for me, and that was a pretty mind-bending and warping cathartic experience. So I'm fresh out of that, and I'm currently in the south of France with my girlfriend at her parents' place, checking out nature and just being outside most of the time, enjoying the wildlife here. And so that's great. So in general, I'm doing great and looking forward to just having a meandering conversation.
So let's start there, man. A recent bufo experience. Like, you're fresh from it, man. Tell me about it.
So the main, for me, I've been thinking about doing that already for like 5 years. I didn't have any experience with DMT, still don't. Only with ayahuasca and psilocybin, mushrooms, and these kind of things. And what I noticed always with the ayahuasca, also with the mushrooms, even high dose, always I will be still quite centered. So there was this sort of core, I think, to my ego structure or to my sort of sense-making capacity that would always be there, observing, let's say, what was going on. And that is both a strength and at the same time a weakness, because one of the main things is why I sort of stepped into the path that I'm on now, or the things that I enjoy exploring now, was out of necessity, out of sort of existential depression and sort of quite heavy feelings about the state of the world, but also just the state of my life and how I pictured things going.
Yes.
And one of the main culprits, as I started figuring this out, I've been on this actively, I think, for 6 years, was my own sort of map making mind. I would call it an inner aspect of me, which I would call I think the emperor archetype, that is just so exceptionally good at mapping, but also controlling, because that's the main reason why it wants to map. It wants to control things, and I'm always active. I was always active with that part. And even if I would be very relaxed and calm, I would still notice like I'm putting fencing around my experience, even though the fencing are hidden by some trees or they're all the way across behind the hills. I know that I'm putting down fences and I'm limiting my sort of being in the moment experience. And it would also just express itself very strongly in channeling or restricting emotional release, easy emotional release. And again, for my practice, that is quite a strength, because it also allows me to, when I work with people, to channel. Hello, Zachary.
Zachary, what's up?
Hey, man. I was just
started talking about channeling, and I felt a pulse.
That's what happens here.
And I changed the channel.
Excellent.
Well done, man. Well done. Simon's just filling us in on this. He'd had a recent bufo experience, man. He's just getting into like how he got there and what's happening, man. Let's see what you got.
I got bufo stories.
Yeah,
Keep going.
I was talking about the reason why, and the main reason is that I've been interacting with an inner aspect, which I would call the emperor, the sort of this sort of supreme ruler for left hemispherical dominance and controlling, mapping reality, my inner world. And I noticed that it's mainly due to anxiety, due to heavy fear that is happening, but it would also block my access to any fear. So I would have no clue what was going on, but living life mostly quite depressed, but having that on top. And I noticed with ayahuasca, I had some grueling ayahuasca journeys where I was just for 5 hours straight, just lying and moments of dying, let's say, but just combat between whatever this emperor was and ayahuasca, and just not a lot directly happening. Oftentimes, I get a lot of things happening after those kind of experiences. But yeah, that kind of put me on the path of thinking about Bufo. That was like my main idea. Like, okay, if I truly want to experience an ego death, where any sense of resistance will be just pushed through within seconds. That's Bufo or 5-MeO DMT. So I was sort of had that open, that option, and the timing was great. And so it came on my path, and I experienced it. And I had just a complete whiteout. I just remember like inhaling and my peripheral vision fractaling, hearing this super loud rushing noise in my ears, and then just gone. And then I woke up, and the tyrant, the emperor, immediately reasserted itself and thought that I was in some sort of black magic ritual. So I was looking at the practitioner or the ceremonialist, like, oh shit, this is bad juju, and so. But it didn't stick, that projection, and then it flipped back on me, and then I just had to vomit a lot, bawling my eyes out, and it was like a complete birth that kind of happened. So I'm still sort of picking the pieces from the whole experience, but I've been noticed like something has been a major sort of node has been reached through this experience, and now there's no particular need, let's say, to have the emperor in place as the one who's controlling everything. So I've noticed a massive shift in everyday presence and less need for control or less fear. All that stuff is sort of way less. So great thanks for the Bufo. It's amazing experience.
You know what I like when you set that up there? You talked about a little bit before, and I know because I read lots of your work that you're a huge fan of Ian McGilchrist, the right brain, left brain. But and we talked, you and I have talked previously about like the world that we're kind of living in, how it seems to be dominated by whether it's the capitalist view or it's the ceramic model of the universe view, where you go out there and you create all these things that happen on some level. And I think that kind of takes us into some of Zachary's films a little bit. Do you think that maybe these things are connected? When you go into these altered states of awareness, we see what is possible and we get sickened by the world we're living in because we become aware of how built up this framework is that's just not serving anybody, man. Where should we take that, Zachary? What are your thoughts?
First time I did DMT, I was in a little tiny trailer in Northern California, and it was like it's like in an H.P. Lovecraft story where he describes like being in an ancient tomb or something.
Yeah.
Like just this hoary, terrible emanation, this holiness. Like every time I've held DMT, I'm scared.
Yeah.
You know,
Smart.
and I took it, and I didn't like blast off. I've never been able to do that. But I felt like my body was a profound limitation on my spirit. And it was just like the soul was like trying to get out. And I became very aware of that there's a spirit that is not the body, and that the body is a interface for.
Yeah.
And I just remembered like being on the floor of this trailer, like dude's like, hey, yeah, you should do more, dude. And I'm like, I'm good. And we fear that. I think we fear the truth. We fear the reality of what is going on beneath the surface, of what's really underneath the hood. And the that extends, outward into the layers of projections and illusions and hallucinations that are our culture, that are the sort of dream states that are mapped to our neurochemicals and to our dopamine circuits and to our cortisol, that are materialized to us through structures like money that make us feel like we're being chased by a cheetah if we don't have it, and that continually validate it through other people saying, what do you mean there could be another way of being? This is it. What are you talking about? Stop questioning it. Stop doing that. It's like when I mean, my life has been a psychedelic for a lot of other people, to take them on these journeys to these other places, like even just like my Instagram stories where I'm like hanging out with tribesmen in Africa, or like I'm taking train journeys across Europe. Like that's kind of frustrating to somebody who's stuck in a life that doesn't feel like it's theirs, and that they are contenting themselves with their artificial fireplace and, TV that's catered to their sensibilities, And so when we take these substances, these, numinous dream, magical artifact, spells, we get more in touch with that real thing underneath us, which is scary and human and vulnerable. I did Bufo in a cave about a mile from here with my fiance and a shaman named Ehud. And we did the hape first, which I fucking hate it. Can't stand it. It's awful for me. It's like the most painful, unpleasant, just ugh. And I was like puking my guts out. And then we took the DMT, and it was like very beautiful and calm and serene and loving. And I just remembered putting my head in my partner's lap and saying like, I'm gonna throw up, and she's like, you can throw up on me. And I just knew that moment that like, oh, this is my woman, this is my fiance, this is my wife.
This is the
like,
one for me.
And it really showed me that. And before that, I'd been afraid of that. I'd been afraid of engagement. I've been afraid of marriage because my parents' marriage fell apart, and because our civilization has created these weird relational constructs of ownership and control that, even another human being can become an object that is contractually obligated to you. And all of this is metaphysical arrangement. It's all metaphysical. It's all spiritual in a way, and yet we forget that, and it's scary to realize that. It's scary to step back into that. It is visceral. There is a visceral feeling of disgust and revulsion that comes over you when you come back into Walmart after experiencing your godhood, after experiencing the infinite, boundless reaches of imagination and possibility and conscious creation, to go and sit in Denny's and know that the food is poison, and that everything around you is made of oil, and that it's just like there's so many layers to it. And I don't really know where to bring this full circle into something that's positive and co-creative. I'm not really sure what the theme of this show is, but it's our adventure to ritualize that discomfort and own it and understand it and use it wisely, so that we are making ourselves uncomfortable with the omnicidal behaviors and roots and cultural conditionings that we're sort of wired into, so that we can gradually dispossess ourselves and leave the body. I love how Terence McKenna says that. The body is a prison. But yeah, we can free ourselves from the comforts of our systems, of the comfort to not have to think about our destiny, from the comfort to not have to question the meaning of life, because there is no meaning of life, from all the false comforts that everything is figured out and all you have to do is just submit yourself to predictable suffering every day, and everything's gonna be fine. And in the afterlife, blah blah blah, you'll be able to retire. It's shedding ourselves of that so that we can come into a truer reality that is uncomfortable to get there. It's like we're squeezing through a birth canal. But once we get out to the other side, it's a glorious meadow with flowers and birds and infinite possibilities and infinite us's.
Yeah,
I love it. I know both of you guys, when I look at some of your guys' work, you both talk about the meta crisis, but I can't help but sort of draw a through line through this idea of purging and then being disgusted and then you're in the power to create stuff. I think both of you guys are doing that. Like, is that where you guys see where we are right now? Is like we are constantly in this purging phase? Are we waking up from this
Yeah.
idea of like, holy shit, like what are we doing to ourselves? Are we coming through that thing, or are we gonna get stuck right here? What are you guys' thoughts, man?
I'd like to chime in a little bit,
Yeah, please.
specifically because Zachary mentioned oil, and oil is quite fascinating. So I did a little bit of or I've been coming in and out of this idea, or this, yeah, it's more of a feeling, intuition, um, trying to make sense of what oil and our use of oil is on a more Gaian consciousness scale. And if we think about it, um, oil, like this compressed fossil hydrocarbons, is death on a massive scale that hasn't returned to the circle of life. So it's compressed mass death of a lot of unicellular organisms. But coal is also trees, other beings, other creatures, and these occurred over many cycles in the planetary history.
Bless you.
Bless you. Over many cycles in the planetary history. So many moments of mass suffering, I'd say, which haven't been, which weren't bioavailable. So they went subcutaneous, they went subterranean, but let's call it subcutaneous, in the layers of the earth, in the body of Gaia, without being touched, without anything happening to it. And then Homo sapiens at one point figures out how to A, access oil, but also B, use it on a mass scale, and then build all these different products of it, asphalt and gasoline, just everything that oil is. We're like a oil. It's not only, I think, oil consuming. It is like we craft with oil, so that we shape a world based on oil products, fossil carbons. Anytime I stepped into heavy trauma release, either in ceremonial setting with plant medicine, or with breath work, or with sort of other methods, shamanic work, oftentimes if I tune into the energy of whatever is congealed around that wound, that sort of compressed energy that wasn't transmuted or wasn't part of life just yet, that feels oily. There's like a film of undeath around it, like frozen in time, and then all these coping structures are developed around it, and that is the stickiness. That to me feels like the contagion, or that heavy fluid. But anyone will tell you who has had many of these sort of cycles where you stepped into a process of transmuting whatever pain is there, and at the end coming out in a sort of post-tragic mindset, learning to see like what does this teach me? What are the nutrients that were present there, or what is the energy that was captured there, and that I just used to transmute whatever was inside of it, to reappreciate that, but learn from the process. I think Gaia is in a certain sense, in a massive trauma resolving state, and at the same time being re-traumatized, as we are in a human-induced mass extinction event. So it's the humans injecting all these fossil carbons, making them bioavailable again in some forms. In other forms, they're not bioavailable. They're plastics, microplastics, all these other kinds of chemicals that aren't being taken up by the planet. But it's causing this state where everything is coated with sort of undeath. And I feel and I look at the state of let's say the human world, I think people are trying to keep up, while at the same time also increasing the pace. But I can't help but think on a planetary scale that this is really part of a process that was already set up, let's say, millions of years in the past. let's not be fully deterministic with that, not necessarily set up for this moment, but we are in this moment and we are doing the transmuting. And I'm very curious how that might resonate with the both of you, or if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah.
Well, I could just say that. Oh, go ahead, George.
No, I was gonna throw it back over to you. I think that a model built on extraction can't do anything but extract. A model built on suffering can't do anything but create a product or service of suffering. I'm just gonna throw it that way. But what are your thoughts on that, Zachary?
I was going to say that that oil is a one-time pulse that is we treat as a flow, but it's really a stock. It's a finite property that is, not going to come back. Mm-hmm. And I think about when we discovered this unbelievable power to, as you're saying, literally reshape the world, by allowing these sort of fossil servants to work in ways we could not. That, like, a barrel of oil contains the work of so many humans working night and day. And the material science and the plastics and the ways that this material is embedded into probably just about everything we're looking at right now.
Yep.
There's plastic on the keyboard. This pen is made of oil. It's all made of oil. I mean, and that right there is a mind fuck, to just look at the world around you and see that everything plastic is made of oil. Mm-hmm. And on the one hand, hemp plastics can replace all of that. That there are other hydrocarbons. If you put two atoms together, basically, I'm not going to try to pretend I'm like a scientist, but I'm not. But we can substitute all of that. But just think about the fact that we got a genie's wish and we turned it into this. We used that wish to turn the world into anything we could imagine, and we created the Mall of America. We created the New Jersey Turnpike.
I often use jet skis and leaf blowers. I'm like, we have this incredible resource, and then we're gonna do this with it.
But didn't we also create, like, the Taj Mahal and, like, beautiful works of art? Like, if you look at oil painting, like, there's cases where we've used it to make the world much more beautiful. I'm not saying I love where we are at right now, but, like, is it a lack of imagination? Is it greed? Is it selfishness? Is it the human condition? Like, what the fuck are we doing?
It's a lack of information and a lack of foresight and restraint and imagination and vision. The Taj Mahal, when was that built?
I don't know, man. I should probably know that, but I don't.
I don't know. I'm gonna guess somewhere in the 1600s.
1600s, yeah.
There you go.
Well before fossil fuels. And yet look at what we're building with fossil fuels today. These cubes that just pop up completely.
It's worse than brutalist.
Yeah. It's like I've seen these incredible carvings from, like, Sri Lanka and from India of these buildings that, like, every bit of it, every facade, every edifice is sculpted with gargoyles and characters and gods. And you look at the doorknobs in the past and they have angels on them. And yet today we have the power to 3D print and to mold things out of natural materials and out of earth. And we have, like, machines that can, like, blast water, that can, like, sculpt stone into whatever shape we can imagine automatically, like which we could create with a 3D virtual rendering and then recreate these things. And yet we don't even advance those technologies because it's more profitable for this abstraction of being able to extract money out of false scarcity to have a whole construction crew waste their time and sit around. It's all so absurd. But the basic thing is that we could have turned the world into anything with the gift of oil, which we should be grateful for in a way, and realize that we did not appreciate those gifts, and we allowed systems that we didn't understand, and powers and principalities and effectively entities to direct our design thinking, because we weren't thinking as cathedral builders. We weren't thinking about the world that we're designing as something permanent or even as something fleeting. We're just seeing it as something that we're sort of mindlessly iterating toward numerical goals, not
Yeah.
meaningful goals.
I love that. That brings up this idea of healing as subversion. When we talk about changing systems, but what if healing itself is the revolution? Simon, how does wholeness threaten power? And Zachary, how does art make systems obsolete?
Nice. I like that. I think I can circle back to the beginning. That's something that
Yeah.
Zachary was saying, and also in response to sort of my Bufo experience, is experiencing wholeness that directly, sort of becoming aware that we are more than just a body, or that we are more than just a job, or just a gender, or just any role that we play. Any upscaling towards wholeness, where we become aware of that we are an enlivening field, that we are a soul, and potentially a soul. I'm saying potentially, but we are a soul that's incarnated many times over time, in many different bodies, many different ways of being, maybe also places not here, not Earth. And the more we become aware of those different scales of awareness, and that is wholeness, I think, is that's destabilitating for any systems of control, any systems of power, because those are mainly built at keeping, let's say, consciousness and awareness low, as in if you are constantly afraid of death, for instance, afraid of pain and suffering, because you think, or you know, or you've been told or been indoctrinated that this is the only life you have, and that all life in the past was misery and hardship, and this is the best one that you're going to get, and so you should be happy, because you're lucky. Then you're going to try your damn best to avoid any hardship, any pain, and any suffering. While at the same time, if you become more and more aware, or let's say conscious of this more enlivening field, this presence of a field, a soul, you can call it different things, but I think many cultures, even in, I'm seeing us as coming from Western European descent, that even in Western European cultures, there was this consciousness around having a soul, right? And there was this other sensibility, and then you had the eternal heaven and all this kind of stuff. We could go into the Abrahamic religions talk about, but I'm feeling more and more that it's becoming quite apparent to me that living in these sort of systems of control, and it actively dampens, let's say, the aware part of us. It's built on frictionless interaction, as driving a car here and there, and highways and work and blah blah. And there's all these interactions are made to be as frictionless as possible, and as unconscious as possible. While when we become conscious, we start to experience the friction of being in a body, and interacting with the body, and interacting with other people, and interacting when it hurts, it physically hurts to me if people I care about aren't let's say, consciously there. Especially if you are consciously there and want to express something, or want to resonate, want to make contact. And it also, I feel like it hurts to walk around very consciously and be an active participant in this whole charade. As Zachary is talking about, sitting at, we don't have a Denny's here in the Netherlands, but we have similar kind of establishments, I think. So to feel that, so I think wholeness is being able to experience wholeness, or sitting with wholeness, or feeling oneself being whole within, and that's doing the internal work with all the inner aspects, and seeing if you can get a coherence where you don't exile parts of you. That creates more capacity to be here, and that also creates, I feel, and in my experience, creates the capacity to look out and reach out more, to create wholeness within family structures, to create wholeness within friends, community, but also wholeness with the non-human world, non-human nature, to feel more embedded, as this body is I like the phrase, this is a rented thing. It's the molecules.
Real quick, gang, I've got to step out for just a sec. I'll be right
Yeah.
back.
Yeah,
All right.
takes time.
That I feel like the body is a rented thing. So we pick up all these molecules and we build up our vessel from this. And it's connected to everything, right? And especially, I often focus on really earthly existence, because we're currently human beings, and this is an Earth show. It's useful to remember or to picture other kind of information and states of being, but it's all about bringing it here and bringing it into this thing, so that this thing is an anchor and that can evoke or express those energies or whatever that information. And in that sense, if you become way more, or if you become more and more conscious of inhabiting a body, inhabiting it consciously, you also become more and more aware of any time you start to experience suffering, friction, and especially if it's designed suffering, if it's designed friction, and if you notice it when you look at how systems are constructed, or not necessarily constructed, how they sort of were developed. Yeah, you can't help but start to become cross and start to try to do things differently, and not want to sort of step into that state. I often think about, we've talked about the superorganism, and that is a term often used by Nate Akins, and on his excellent show, I think Zachary is probably familiar, you probably as well, George, is the Great Simplification. And he talks about the superorganism. And when you look at ant colonies, ants are super interesting, right? How did ants evolve? Because if you have, first, let's say you have individual insects. If you see a beetle, beetles don't swarm, right? But if you study the behavior of an ant colony, you can even do that, let's say at home, if you just have ants around the house. But if you watch a documentary or read a book on the behavior that they are capable of as a swarm, that is of a different order of that what they will be capable of individually. And again, then I feel like, okay, have the humans been in some stage in development, in civilizational development, have we been here? Hijacked is often like a loaded term, but has a hive consciousness been projected on the earth, as a sense like an ant superorganismal consciousness is projected on a group of ants? Has something like that occurred? And are these systems that we're often fighting against, or if you talk about the matrix and all this kind of, there are many different frameworks how you can relate to this. I try to look at it from that perspective of like, okay, it's a superorganismal consciousness that runs like a cloud computer of sorts, and that tries to hijack, let's say, our physical bodies. So we're competing with it, let's say, for sovereignty of our sort of biomechanical or whatever interface we have in this reality. It's competing with us. And as I think Zach was also telling at the beginning, and what you have here in the main line, when the myth collapses, what happens if that superorganismal structure is actively debasing and deconstructing the sort of basis it needs to survive, like a cancer at some point kills the host, and then there's nothing to grow on anymore. So it's kind of like where I sometimes get the feeling of consciousness being dipped down in order to be sort of subsumed in these superorganismal structures, and then you have the development of ideologies and these kind of things. Also feel very clearly to me structures like that. And is this coming out the other end, is becoming, let's say, more fully aware of that reality, but also of the sort of more metaphysical reality of how much influence does thinking and imagining and collective field work have on reality. And I think quite a lot. Probably that's the main thing that interacts with metaphysical layers, or the substrate of reality, and that we construct it from. But this competition with this Moloch, Wetiko, or whatever you want to call it, I think that's one of the big struggles that we're in. And then I think wholeness is indeed is an active move to see if you can step above that kind of programming within us.
Yeah. First off, thank you for that. Sometimes I get lost in the world of wholeness, because it seems on some level, if you look at it as like some hive mind, it almost seems like a caste system. And like all of a sudden we find ourselves in this caste system where there's no social mobility. And like that's kind of where I think we are on so many levels, at least here in the Western world. Like there's no social mobility on some level. So you have to go out and create a parallel economy. You have to go out and create this thing. But then you run into the problem of maybe the hero's journey again. What do you think, Zachary, as where we are right now, as wholeness, as sort of a fucking caste system we're in? How do we think ourselves outside of this box, man? It seems like you're doing some stuff with that, with all the work you're doing.
Well, first, I just want to say that a simple definition of a superorganism is an organism whose children are raised by someone else. And I'm thinking about the fact that we are definitely a superorganism in that capacity. And we're not just a superorganism, we're like super mimetic, because memes are raising our children. Literally. The television raises people. We send our children into a box we call school, and someone then manufactures a consent for a whole program of identity and history and consciousness creation that is basically an automated mimetic process, where there's an idea, a story that is being purveyed, that raises the person and shapes them and molds them more than their parent, and that becomes the parent. And so civilization and society as we know it becomes our parent. I don't really know what the question was. Something about wholeness. It's like the whole cycle of singularity into separation, into becoming, of like the Big Bang, or however the universe began as a nothingness becoming somethingness, nothingness being whole, something becoming separation of that, and then all of us going from a unified consciousness into a separated individual consciousness, so that we can go on this sort of journey back into the wholeness, into the group, into the collective, as a process that evolves through the journey, through the hero's journey. I think that was something about the prompt for this conversation was about a hero's journey. And I think that archetypal structure of story is about that process from wholeness to individuation and then back into the whole. And Western civilization as we know it is just hasn't finished the story. It hasn't finished the cycle. And so our story that we are authors of, insofar as we assert our imagination and choose to write the next chapter, rather than just the past or the present moment, man, to really be able to think in futures and to create our future does absolutely entail creating a parallel economy and a new structure and a new super organismic, super mimetic process and culture that can raise people right and raise AIs right as other expressions of our consciousness. And so the process of, you asked about art and about, I think, filmmaking. These are mass-produced ideas, mass-produced trips. A film is a mass-produced numinous experience that before would have been spoken around a fire or would have been scribbled into a book. But film is not scarce in the way that a book is even. You don't have to hold it to have it. And it's this experience that in the internet, like the video that we're watching now, it exists in perpetuity as long as the servers that are hosting it and the channel that is playing it is out there. And so we have the imperative and opportunity to reshape the system that rears us and that shapes our consciousness and that brings us into wholeness, out of our fractured state, by recreating that culture and by spreading it and sharing it and repeating it and reifying it, which is a fancy sociological term for when you repeat something so much it becomes true. We reify, the value of the dollar every time we spend it. We reify the preeminence of politicians and nation states, because other people think that they're powerful. We think that they're powerful, and so it's like it could be a crazy practice like circumcision or something that you just repeat it enough that it becomes like, oh yeah, that's normal. Human sacrifice. Oh yeah, well, we've got to make sacrifices to the gods, or that won't happen. That's the sort of Moloch thing. Moloch is about child sacrifice, sacrificing the future for the present, sacrificing the long term for the short term, trading in tomorrow for today. That's kind of what our separation and fragmentation represents. But also in the spirit of wholeness, our story needs that. The story needs a fracture. It needs a separation. It needs a point where we leave the unity and the wholeness of an unbroken culture that no one can even see because they're inside of it. And so to be jettisoned out of that, as I have been, as I assume you have been, and as anybody dancing with psychedelics and films and great art and psychedelic rock and all these things that bring us out of that shatter the wholeness, the totality of that story, that is get up and go to work and seek meaning and look for love in a self-referential sweetheart. All of those things are sort of made whole when you break out of them in the discomfort of a new story and of the reunification of the identity of re-identifying with something bigger than yourself, which is that meme that supersedes you, that goes further, that is the transcendent identity that goes beyond the individual body that the psychedelic is there to help you escape from, or that is the paradigm of the metabolism or the sort of like dopaminergic reinforcement systems of money, growth, followers, all of these very interesting, just that I'm thinking out loud, that are like expressions of the body politics, dopamine cycles and neurochemistry that are reinforcing these things that may not be true. In the same way that somebody who goes through a life-altering trauma, their neurochemicals are keeping that story going, even if it's not happening. In our way, likes and followers and numbers and dollars and customers, all of these numerical things are like the sort of the neurological chemistry that keeps these artificial stories going. And we need to create new reinforcing mechanisms and feedback loops and flood the good happy chemicals in new directions so that we can reinforce a new story.
What, on the surface level, like it looks like everything is just collapsing and it's going to shit, but maybe this is what birth looks like. Maybe this is what a new myth looks like. Maybe this is what we're going to look back on and be like, those are the best times ever. Like that's when we created this whole new world. You guys, I know it's so easy to fall into like the doom scrolling or to fall into these patterns of everything is cracking and crumbling, but is it possible that we're living through like the best time in history right now?
You mind if I jump in there, Simon?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just telling this to a kid I've been mentoring since he was 15, that he is in the best time to be alive, to be himself. Nice. Not in the fact that there are more slaves on this planet than ever before, or that a child dies of hunger every 5 seconds, or that, we're destabilizing the fucking oceans, and that there are mass die-off events all across the blue dot, or the fact that people are, destroying themselves in addictive cycles to compete to destroy their planet and themselves. But the fact that he's here and we're here at the moment where we have the recognizance to make sense of that, and we have the technological capacity and the critical mass all over the world, as it's not yet organized, to be the ones we've been waiting for, and to actually step in at a transformative juncture in history where the old story is breaking apart and we can become the characters and the authors of that new story. And I'm sorry, I have to go pee again.
Yeah, no worries, man. What do you think, Simon?
Yeah, no, I love how you worded that. It's also kind of how I look at it. I sometimes get this image of that overshoot. You can also picture it as a sort of a launch or something.
Right.
That overshoot is almost like a rocket, and then the amount of energy that's needed to get lift off. There is this brief moment of weightlessness, and in that weightlessness, we might have the opportunity to seek a new attractor state, like a new, almost like if you picture like you're on a planet and you leave the gravitational pull almost, and maybe there's another planetary body nearby, and then if you overshoot, let's say from being in the bounds of this one, then you become attracted to the other one, so you snap into another let's say consensus state. And I'm not talking about physical planets here, but more about coherent worldviews, coherent stories, and maybe the superorganismal patterning, like a different type of hive consciousness, maybe one that is life aligned, and then life with a capital L. And then I'm thinking more about all the non-human denizens that we also depend upon, but which also have a right, or right is again the wrong word, but also are here and deserve to be here, and also deserve to continue on changing, diversifying, and all those kind of things. And so it's in that sense, it pains me living in this time, because in that sense, it feels like it's one of the worst times, because we are seeing many things die and experiencing things, many other creatures and life forms perishing at a very fast rate. And at the same time, indeed, as far as we know, the human species hasn't been alive in these kind of numbers on the planet. And as the old contextual coherent stories are dying, the sort of the modern stories, city-states, empire, religious beliefs, even old religious stories, there's of course there's a lamentation about it, there's pity in it, there are beautiful stories that might not be retold, but at the same time, it's that what Zachary was talking about is if these cracks appear within these sort of almost watertight stories, then water starts to seep in, and then maybe you could swim upstream through the incoming water and find yourself into the outside of this story, being reminded of, oh, what the hell was I inside of, and where are we? And the more people we find together, is that we can start sharing more stories. And I think stories and ways of seeing the world, and these are as much created as received by us. So I think these are things that move through us, and then through us as sculptors, we might be able to, well, again, channel certain stories, and then they start to live here. And as they start living here in this physical reality, they start to evolve and being shaped by the conditions here. And I think that we are living also in a period of time where we are in heavy informational overshoot. And at the same time, that's also a boon, because that means that there's quite a lot of different information and different ways of being, of thinking, of sensing, that we can inhabit and invite, and through that invitation see what's to come through. And well, there's also quite a bit of joy in that, because I if I speak for me personally, one of the main things I was heavily depressed by at my deepest points was like, is this it? Just the general feeling of, is this it? Am I just going to continue life as this, within a structure like this, as everything is crumbling down? Yeah, then I'm that doesn't sound like a deal to me. And then when it starts opening up, like, no, this isn't it. There is actual space for authorship and for change and shifts, and just doing. We're also living in a time where, yes, there are a lot of systems of control, but there's also a lot of personal freedom in just weird ways of expressing oneself and getting in contact with other weird people who are expressing themselves.
I love it. I want to jump. We got some people coming in from the chat right here. This one comes to us from Priya from Toronto, and she says, "What's your favorite lie humanity still believes?" Thank you, Priya. It's a beautiful question. Zachary, you want to take that one?
My favorite lie that humanity still believes?
Yeah.
I think my favorite, like, what do they mean by that?
I guess maybe that when you say it out loud, it's. I don't know if you should have a favorite lie, but like, what lies do you think are out? What do you think is the most precious lie that humanity still believes?
Shall I go, Zachary?
Yeah.
I have one that comes to mind.
Yeah, go for it.
It's the Protestant work ethic, and whatever form it is taken now, is that life here should be grueling hard work, and that is it. And that is how you should live. It should just be continuous brutal work, and that is a great virtue. And that has just taken such a monstrous form, and with capitalism it becomes like, or you become a slave that exploits itself, that doesn't need a master at all. You just have the slave master up in here.
So that's a very funny clip of Alex Ramosi. It's like a business coach guru, and he's like, slaves worked all hours of the day. They worked from the time they woke up until the time they fell asleep. In America and Egypt, all through history. And if they did it, so can I. It's just like, yeah, I mean, Buckminster Fuller said we must do away with the absolutely specious notion that we must earn our right to live. That we extend to nature as well, that if nature is not working and producing, and if we are not productive, then we don't deserve food, shelter, water, the things that we need to exist. We don't deserve life if we're not being productive in a sort of suicidal paradox that we need to produce, and that we need to produce more, and that we're in scarcity. I mean, that's the ultimate lie. That's the biggest one. That's the big duh, is that we are in scarcity and that we don't have enough and we have to compete to survive. And that's the foundation of the whole market, that there's not enough to go around and we have to compete over it, and we have to go to war, and there has to be a winner and a loser, rather than this idea that we actually have enough for everybody. We have way more than enough. We have not infinite, but resplendent, bountiful abundance, if we allocate it and utilize it properly and we don't overstrip it. I think that's the big lie. The big lie is that we have to compete, and we internalize that into our daily lives. We are exploiting ourselves. We are hustling. We are trying to compete in the market rather than cooperate towards something better. And there is a motivational pathway into this, out of the existing burning building, that brings us back into the truth. Although, the lie, the favorite lie, I guess, is Pablo Picasso said, art is the lie that tells the truth. I think that there is some element of like lying that is essential to human beings, that we lie about the world because we're seeing something better, that we have a delusion that things could be what they aren't right now. And that is always what drives the wheel of history forward meaningfully, is those people who can see, oh yeah, late stage capitalist abomination, man-made horrors beyond comprehension on a daily basis, brought to me, 24/7 in a casino style endless scroll. Cool. Again, ocean currents collapsing, biodiversity dying off, fascist tin pot dictators taking over. I mean, you can look around and see, okay, things suck, things are terrible, things are bad. Or you can be one of those people who's insulated by their money and say, everything's great. What are you talking about? The stock market's doing great. These are all lies. And we need better lies. I don't know. I was a pathological liar as a kid for a pace. I like threw ninja stars all in the wall and I just denied it flat out, you know?
Wasn't me.
And I think that there's something powerful in that. I think that there is in that impulse a desire to break down the world and bring it back up in something other, in a different shape, in a different form, to let the waves crash over the sandcastle and build it back up anew. And it does require a sort of insane delusion to think that you can change a world like this that's so intractable and so structured and so systematized and so totalitarian and so totalizing in its apparent victory. And yet we must dream. We must see beyond that. We have to lie to ourselves, or we have to dispel the lie with new stories, with new fictions that become real. Because everything that we're dealing with is a fiction. Everything we're dealing with is a lie. You know, most of our culture and most of the memes that are raising us are not truthful. They're not rooted in reality. They're not ritualized, you know, mythic stories connecting us to the water system and to the generative capacities of our environment to produce for us. They are self-perpetuating illusions, automatically and exponentially regenerated by essential falsehoods and stories and myths and traumas that are still puppeting the entire human race, or not the entire human race, because most of the billions of people in this world actually don't live by these lies. They just live in them, or they tolerate them, or they grudge through them, or they honk their horn at them in their car, and they know that it's bullshit. Most people do know that. They know that it sucks, but it's we have to muscle through the discomfort to acknowledge that we've been duped and that things could be better. That it requires an admission that things are not great and that we're in a subpar, subhuman situation for us to be able to say, okay, so things can be better. That's a big block. That's a big hurdle that people have. And then one more. I love that this is a lie because it's dispellable. Lies are powerful because truth can dispel them, right? And anything that anything that can be destroyed by the truth should be and can be. And it's that we are not powerful enough to make the change. And that's a lie. And that's scary for people because they have to step into an actual responsibility and authorship. I have to pee again. What the fuck did I drink this morning?
Man.
It's almost like the ending of a poem to say, I have to pee again. And then the next
It's like a Kipling, if. It blows my mind to think about where we are. But, you know, from where I sit as someone who's 50, I have this rare vantage point where I can see what it is that was built before. And yet I can talk to some young men and women that are creating these new ideas. And not only that maybe they're not really creating them as much as they are embodying them. And it's such an interesting perspective. You know, when you look at this way and you go, oh, I see what it was. But then you can look at this one and be like, oh, I see what it's becoming. I think that is maybe the role of people like Gen Xers or something like that. Is like you got to see both worlds. You got to see this one dying, you get to see this one emerging, you know, and so you become sort of this sort of mediator, or this someone who's translating, like, wait, some of these ideas are not so bad. And you know, you got to tell the older generation, like, dude, these kids have way more awareness than you've ever had. Like, you have no idea what they're coming up, and you don't understand what it's like. So it's an interesting generational perspective. What are your thoughts on the generational aspect of it, Simon?
It's nice. You paint an interesting image there. It's like this bridging function between the old and the new.
Yeah.
So I'm 36, and sometimes it's difficult not to be a little. I also do, let's say, I also facilitate workshops with the work of Joanna Macy, like the work that reconnects, and also for different audiences. And I've interacted also with lovely people in general, but also in more, let's say, public, like short workshops kind of things. And then interacting with elderly people, there's often how do I say this without it's generalizing, but there can be this sense of entitlement and this sense of, well, I'm old, so I know. that there's this sense of entitlement to wisdom, so that they attribute wisdom to themselves, where I feel like, look, I've talked to 20-year-olds who have way more wisdom than the way you are describing or feeling or thinking about things. And that can be frustrating. And then I can have this image of like, okay, with the old, literally the old world dying and old ideas getting sent to pasture, where I think it's that's also good. It's part of the cycle. You have this, what is this book about? Hospicing modernity with like the composting of the old, and then you can midwife the new. And that work to 80 generations. Zachary was talking about how he's mentoring someone from since they were 15. It's super important work. Most of the work that I've done with young people, people that I help, or that I support in that process, either with group work or individually. One of the main things that happens there is that they get taken seriously, their concerns, and that you give them space to unpack the thoughts that they have about the world and the feelings that they have about the world, and that they're not told to be that they're snowflakes, or that they're overreacting, or that it's always been like this but it will be fine, or blah blah blah, all these stories. And that kind of opens up this ability to start sensing through, like, what situation are we in. And I'm seeing, and maybe this is generalizing, maybe the experience is different where you guys are at, but I'm seeing the younger generations do this way more than the older generations. And that probably also has something to do with, or a lot to do with, different sort of biological factors, but also just material factors. If you have a pension, and if you have a mortgage, or if you have your savings and everything's put down into the system, and into the system surviving, of course what is the saying? It's very difficult to get a man to believe something if his paycheck depends on him not understanding it.
Yes. Eugene Debs.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So I think the generational, it's not absolute, but I do see that there's a difference.
Zachary, what do you think about the generational divide? Like I was saying, I'm coming up on 50, so I have this sort of interesting seat where I can look at this last generation and see the things that they've done there, and then I can see this new generation coming up and creating new things that are happening there. And I feel like I'm a translator sometimes. Like, I'm talking to this group of people and I'm like, you have no idea what these kids are coming up with. They have this whole new sense of awareness. And then I got to tell some of the young guys, like, wait, some of these people built some pretty incredible shit. Like, some of their values were pretty on point. But when you look at the generational divide, how does that play into your matrix?
Well, I've always connected a lot more with older people than I have people my age, because I don't know. I was successfully disassociated from my culture through what you could call mental illness. I don't know, ADHD, adaptation to distract myself and disassociate from everything around me, which is a precursor to the psychedelic experience, which, insane people can endogenously produce. So I'm in that club. Lucky me. But yeah, I always connected with teachers and with older people and my parents' friends. And now I spend my time, a lot of the people I'm working with are not just teenagers. I've just got off a call with Steve Keen, who I'm helping to mentor or guide through this navigating this landscape of new media and community building, and it's interesting to be engaged with those people with that perspective, because I really respect them. I respect their insight and their experience. While at the same time things are changing so rapidly and radically, I think we really need the wisdom of elders, and we need the novelty of youth, and it's the sort of perpetual duty of youth to destroy everything that was created before. I think there's some anarchist that was saying, like, I will be, if we succeed, I will be called conservative and hung for the society that I create. Jacques Fresco said, the cities that I design will be straitjackets to the children of the future. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's like there's a rebellion embedded in the regenerative reproductive capacities
Yeah.
of life and death. That like death is necessary, like to innovate and evolve and move things forward generationally. And so, yeah, I just think we need a clear reconnection. I think materially, the older generations have accumulated a vast amount of wealth that is going to blow up their ass, I guess, or go to the grave with them if they don't transfer that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the boomer generation has an enormous amount of wealth, and the biggest wealth transfer in human history is incoming as they croak. And I'd like to help with that silver tsunami. I'd like it to be a wave that is positive and a
Yeah.
wave that we can surf and a wave that, brings prosperity to the new generation where we can have a handing off of the reins. I mean, like a lot of our politicians are geriatric. Literally, they're in their 70s and 80s, and they
Yes.
are not functioning properly. And so we have a gerontocracy where the rich, sorry, well, the rich old rule, but the old rule. That's a gerontocracy, and that's not a just structure. It's a structure that is strangling the youth, and that is killing the future generations. That it really should be the responsibility of the older generations to guide and to aid and to make it so that the youth have a better life than they do. And there's a very serious disorder in our culture where they're trying to hold on to what they have, and they don't necessarily want the next generation to have a better life. They think they need to struggle more. They think they need a war. These are very popular ideas among that generation, even though, to fire some shots, the boomer generation had it way easier in a material sense, um, even as they had it way harder in a spiritual sense, because they had such strong infrastructure to be born into and such steady tracks to just move through, just go to college and then get a job, and that McDonald's job can support a fucking 2-car garage and a home, and you just got to show up, you
Yeah.
know, and there are plenty of jobs and there's plenty of opportunity, and we don't have that today. Thankfully, we don't have that. Thankfully, our generation has to redefine wealth, because transferring that wealth doesn't just mean giving money to a new generation and giving them the reins to a broken system. It means us redefining what that wealth means, and uh, basically regaining our true inheritance, which should be the earth.
I love it. I love it. Gentlemen, this conversation, I should have scheduled more time, man. I feel like we're just kind of starting to get into first off, all the covers have been brilliant, but I really like where we're at right now. But my daughter's got guitar lessons coming up here, and we got to go play some Led Zeppelin, I guess, is what we're working on
Oh,
today.
nice.
So here I am throwing back to the oldies, but it's still rebellious a little bit, And but let me throw it back to each one of you to give you just a moment to wrap up and let people know where they can find you, what you're working on. Let me start with you, Simon.
Yeah, so thank you both again, George, for hosting this and always being so gracious with your time, but also with just the questions and the fun introductions. So happy to be here. Happy to meet you, Zachary. It's been nice. I had a feeling that we probably will get along. That's good. Yeah, it's been interesting talking in this conversation, seeing where this goes and the kind of stuff that we're getting into. More and more, and maybe that's also the Bufo talking, but more and more I'm sort of letting the reins go a little bit on my theorizing about where things are going. And I'm trying to make more sense of where we are at, while having a, let's say, inner orientation towards a more life-affirming future. And that one always includes more connection in a heartfelt way. But for me, it's very much through the more than human, also then included the non-human, and seeing if those can enter the picture more, and that we could communicate more in a sense where it's less the human constantly soloing over the whole orchestra. That's a little segue as well, like So people can find me on LinkedIn. I often post the little things there. My Substack is like a little meager, but every now and then I'll write something down. If I want to be more esoteric than my LinkedIn sort of allows. And I'm hosting sort of group ceremonial events where we do shapeshifting, and that has been something that's been bringing me a lot of joy, and I got a lot of sort of very positive feedback just in general in how I experience life, but also from the people participating. And I'm slowly but surely figuring out ways of expanding that, how we can get a dialogue going with interesting fields. We've gone into the earth, into the bedrock. We've talked with whales, become forests, and just figuring out like how do I get people who are interested in this, get them into these states of being, and get them talking to the subject that they are interested in. I have scientist friends with whom I'm aching to start shapeshifting into microbes and viruses and all these kind of things to gain more insight instead of trying to peer from the objective reductionist framework from the outside inwards. I want to get people in and experience. So that's one of the main things I'm super enthusiastic about.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you, man. Always a pleasure. Zachary, where can people find you? What do you got coming up, man? What's on the radar for you?
I'm a little low energy today. I haven't had breakfast yet. But I have a storytelling federation called Another World is Possible, and we're crafting the meta myths as a storytelling system to guide conscious transformation and reauthorship of reality. We are changing the world one story at a time and working to guide people and organizations into their purpose and to regaining control of the story of their life, which is a holistic reorganizational process to reposition yourself cosmically, to stop competing in the marketplace and start standing ahead as a leader, waving your banner, holding up your shield and sword, cutting through the bullshit, striking to the heart of what really matters. And yeah, we're just plowing ahead, helping people as much as we can, young and old, to really get out of the internalization of all these problems, which is like just going inward, and the sort of bent that we only have the realm of language and philosophy to navigate these issues, which I reject because I've spent too much time navel gazing. I love a good navel gaze, but yeah, I mean, our quest is to leave the imprisonment of the individual body and the sort of narrow confines of success that is one life or one company or one family, and to expand that into a truly planetary ambition that we can externalize as a journey, as a beacon, to attract people into the story with us so that we can actually change the situation that we're in and create sustainable regenerative livelihoods, positive growth, the spread of good ideas, the increase of the body politic neurochemicals of followers and engagements and sales and all of these other things as well, because that's the world we live in. I'm kind of struggling to like really bring this full circle in terms of the mythic diatribe we've had today. It's felt a bit sporadic and random for me. I mean, I'm just diving in here, making a little meaning on a Saturday afternoon, making a little sense. And ultimately, I think if there's one thing I could come back to, it's this idea of the super meme or super memetics of what we're doing, that stories drive everything around us in the world. They are not physical. They are metaphysical. They are manifestational. They are spiritual. They are hallucinogenic. They are lies. And yet lies, or lies that tell truth, are extremely powerful. And we have lost them. We've lost our connection to them. We have allowed ourselves to be characters in somebody else's story, and we have forgotten that we are the authors of the story. So if any of you are on a journey and you want to communicate that better, or you want to expand it, you want to raise the roof of what you're doing, you want to take it to the next level, you want to evolve, or if you're not in that phase and you want to, and you're a little bit scared, but you wonder what could be on the other side, reach out, and I will help you through that narrow passage. Because what's on the other side is truly amazing, and we can make this world what we want it to. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And to add a little scarcity and urgency to the offer, the clock is ticking. There is a very narrow window. The Indiana Jones style door is closing on us, and we're in a civilization scale narrative reset. And if we don't author it, the story that has been destroying everything in the world autonomously without even really any individual controller, any person making it, that's going to be the story that takes over. And it's going to be a total victory of that story, triumphing over the real world as we trawl the oceans and devastate our landscapes and black the sun out with coal, for a lack of imagination and insight and connection and just a better story. Last word is that when logic fails, people reach for their stories. And logic is failing the world. The stories that we've been born into and the structures around us don't make sense to most people. And so we have an obligation and a beautiful opportunity to present people with a way forward and to step into being leaders, to going from being the freaks and the misfits and the losers or the dreamers or the idealists or the people who are just getting by, who are maybe doing really well in that existing system, but you're still not authors. You're not waving the flag saying over here, over here. We have to be those people. All of us have to step into that role. And what a journey it is to get there. If you can get through the discomfort, and the psychedelics help. So go to George for that.
I love it, man. I love it. Yeah. I had a conversation with a gentleman not too long ago, and he said, George, listen, if you want something from the world, stand on top of a trash can and yell for it. Tell them you need it. Get out there and do it. And so with that, I say, if you're listening and you enjoyed this conversation, go to the show notes and click on the Support True Life podcast, because I need some help to bring these awesome conversations to all of you guys. I'm grateful for both of you and to all the listening audience that participated today. Thank you so much. Please support the show. That's all we got for today, ladies and gentlemen. Hang on briefly afterwards, gentlemen, and everyone else, have a beautiful day. Aloha.
Did I give you those Martian